It's big, it's blue, and it flies really slow. Hey there, I'm John. This is Two Brothers RC, and this is the Kavan Norden. I got in touch with Anthony at FPV Builds RC, who sent this awesome bird over for us to demo for you guys today. The Kavan Norden is basically the ultimate bush plane. It's lightweight, easy to fly, awesome to master. But enough of my editorializing. Let's see how it stacks up to being put through the Two Brothers patent pending review system. We start off this video by talking agility. A bush plane's most useful flight characteristic is whether it can be maneuvered in reasonably tight areas, like traditional backcountry flying, not places like this, because Norden was never designed to fly here, and it ain't gonna do it unless you're an exceptionally skilled pilot.
Awesome. Yikes.
Which I definitely am not. We don't see many traditional backcountry locations to fly from in radio control, at least not where I live, unless you live in Alaska, so tight corridors like this will have to make do. For bush flying, the Norden fits the bill perfectly, checking off our can be flown with a neutral center of gravity metric, and it takes off and it lands without struggling, also passing there. The double slotted Fowler flaps that are directly wired into the moving slats make a huge difference in low speed handling. If you've got rudder skills, you can easily steer the plane around in high alpha and drop it on the main wheels in a 3-point landing on hillsides. It does have adequate thrust for bush flying, but it doesn't have enough thrust in stock form to hover. You can fix that by running a 13x5 2-bladed propeller instead of the stock 10x6 3-bladed prop. The stock motor is rated for a 13-inch prop with a little bit more pitch to it, so it'll handle it just fine. You'll be able to hover and torque roll on that propeller. If you want a spinner for it, the standard 2-blade timber spinner will fit. If you want even more power, you'll need to cut the cowling free, which is glued to the fuselage, and replace the stock motor with an FMS 3541 1050 kV motor, swinging a 13x4 propeller. You'll also have to run the nall spinner on it unless you can find another spinner that works better. This will absolutely wake the plane up and give it a 2-to-1 thrust-to-weight ratio easily, making hovering a breeze, but it'll chew through batteries faster, so be sure you're running good packs like SMC 2400 HV batteries. Norden does have a low 1G stall speed even with the nose held up in high alpha, which passes our checkpoint here. But it does suffer from wing rock if you push the angle of attack by pegging the elevator. It's nothing you can't fix by adding opposite rudder to the wing rock directions. Stall recovery is really easy. Let go of the elevator, keep thrust applied. As long as you have flaps dropped to full, the slats combined with the double slotted Fowler flaps make it bite into the air without stalling immediately. Norden earns a 5 out of 5 in our agility metrics. Now, if you're one of those crazy people like us who enjoys flying in really confined areas, I will reiterate one more time that Norden is not the kind of plane that you want to take with you into the forest. It handles reasonably confined areas very well, but it's not meant for flying in a literal forest. I gave it 3 different attempts at the hardest bush flying spot that we fly from, and it was just too floaty for it, making it very hard to fly into and out of the shoreline here. Unfortunately, it didn't survive this bush flying trial, but hey, it was never designed to begin with. And it kept flying up until the very end. It's durable. Gotta give it that. Moving on to flight time, we got an average of 8 minutes of flight on the stock setup, closer to 7 minutes on the 13x5 propeller swap. Norden definitely flies for quite a long time on the SMC 2400 high voltage batteries that we were using, which is great, and you should see at least 7 minutes on standard 2200 lipos, so long as you're doing backcountry flying, and not just showing off your hover fetish non-stop. This changes a bit if you upgrade to the nall motor. It's a bit more power hungry and it will reduce your flight times accordingly, so expect roughly 5 minutes if you upgrade. But You get a huge amount of thrust in return, so it might be worth the trade-off to you. Norden gets a 5 out of 5 here. The landing gear on Norden are another high point. The wheels are functional, passing that basic checkpoint. The wheels aren't hard, they're inflatable, actually. That's another pass. The gear have a good suspension system, passing yet again. The wheels aren't prone to bouncing either, which is really good to see, because some inflatables can make a plane bounce around like it's a 10-year-old that's high on pixie sticks, passing once more. The gear didn't require any maintenance that I could see, even with hard landings.
So close. So close.
Norden earns a 5 out of 5 in this category. Moving on to fit and finish, I had to revisit this section. It's been quite a while since we last reviewed a bush plane, and the first metric was looking for fully painted foam. That's kind of pointless on a bush plane. The whole point of bush flying is to get the plane as light as possible. That doesn't mean that every plane has to be super light to be a stall bird. After all, Draco was a flying pig even in full scale, but it is true to a point that airplanes do tend to fly better when they're lighter, especially when they have a 1.6 meter wingspan. So we start this section off by looking for large control surfaces, which it has. Norden has a massive rudder, a large elevator, huge flaps, and moderately sized ailerons. So it's not a rolling beast, but it's certainly got the wing set up to fly very, very slow, passing this metric checkpoint. The foam wasn't damaged or weird out of the box, passing yet again. Where it fails is featuring foam hinges on the ailerons, rudder, and elevator. At this scale, I do feel that it should have come with plastic hinges, or, at the very least, CA hinges. Norden features a mix of mostly decals with a few stickers, so I'll give it a pass here, and the decals did adhere to the paint. Norden earns a 4 out of 5 in this section. Our final section is avionics and lighting, and Norden does pretty well here, like it has throughout pretty much all of this review so far. All of the servos are metal geared and pretty precise too. That's not a combination that you find often in radio-controlled aviation. Servos are either usually metal or they're precise, but they're hardly ever both. I didn't notice any overheating issues on the stock ESC, though I did eventually upgrade to a 60 amp Avian ESC to run the nall motor system. That definitely makes the Avian overheat, so you might want to run a 70 amp unit or better, because that thing really overdrives the ESC. The lighting system functions, and from what I can tell, it looks correct. Where I take issue with this plane is the absolutely bizarre choice to glue the motor cowling to the fuselage. If you want to swap motors to the FMS unit that I mentioned before, you gotta cut off the foam cowling, install the new motor, and re-glue the cowling back on. Literally every other manufacturer has screw-on cowlings. Now that's hardly a deal breaker here, it's just weird. Norden earns a 4 out of 5 here. Overall, Norden earns a 23 out of 25. It's not perfect, but it's really damned good based on the score alone. You can take this to a lot of confined areas, just not a forest. And really, the only reason to fly in a forest is for social media content. 99.9% of RC pilots fly at a club or at a grass field somewhere. While it's definitely a ton of fun to fly in the woods sometimes, it's also a lot of fun to make this plane hover, torque roll, grab it out of the sky, and push the limits of what it's capable of doing. If you like this plane, consider picking it up from the non-affiliate link in the description below. It'll take you straight to fpvbuildsrc.com, where you can check out the rest of what Anthony's got for sale. He didn't have to send this over to us at all, but he did, and that was really great of him to do, which allowed us to take a look at what this plane can do and what it can't, giving you a complete picture of what to expect if you were thinking of buying one for yourself. And if you're gonna get it, FPV Builds RC is definitely the place to go in the US. Before we wrap up here, special thanks to our channel members on screen right now, and you can join too via twobrosrc.com/supporters. Massive thanks to Sarasota RC Squadron, Michael Smith, Casey Gray, and JR Man, who all signed up for the Mega Fans tier. And don't think that I don't appreciate you just because I didn't say your name out loud. Every one of you is helping us keep this channel going, and we truly appreciate you. Coming up next week, we take a look at the long-awaited free-wing MiG-29 twin 80mm EDF jet. The amount of work it takes to fly like this might surprise you.